Hey there, my name is Andrew Geiwitz. I'm a local realtor in the Green Bay, Wisconsin area, and today we're going to be talking about the cost of living in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I love this city. I love creating content about this city, which is why I made this channel. And it's also just a great opportunity to share more about what I've learned as I've been exploring and getting to know the city better as a realtor and as a dad, and in all the different ways that I get to enjoy this city. So let's get started. So I have friends all the time asking me about the price of housing in Green Bay or other places, just because I'm kind of a housing nerd. I love learning about the cost to live in this place versus that place. And so I wanted to make a video today just talking more about what it costs to live in Green Bay. Honestly, a main reason why is because my friends are constantly blown away with how affordable it is to live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And so we're going to break that down into some different areas like housing, transportation, healthcare, and food, which are kind of the main factors that are all bundled together as we talk about cost of living in any area of the world. It's important to know as we talk about all of these different expenses that these are averages. Cost of living is something that's averaged out. So there's always going to be opportunities to have something cost more or cost less. But we're talking about the averages today. And that's something that's really helpful as you're thinking about budgeting or planning ahead as far as moving to a new city. When we talk about buying or renting a home in Green Bay, what you're going to find for price is a rental for maybe 2-bedroom or 3 bedrooms is going to be somewhere around that $800 to $1,200 a month mark. When you talk about buying a home, it averages somewhere in that like 140 to 160 range right now. You could find homes for under 100 and for well over that as well, but those are kind of the averages when we look at Green Bay, Wisconsin. So let's talk gas prices for a moment. When we think about transportation in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the main thing that I think of is the price of gas. Now we do have public transportation options available in Green Bay as well. Those can be found at the Green Bay Metro website. If you go there to take a look at the prices and things for bus fare and other means of transportation they offer, you can learn more about that. For the sake of this video, we're going to be talking primarily about the cost of gas, as you'll most likely be using your own personal vehicle to get around. But the Green Bay Metro option is still available, and I wanted to make sure to point that out. We do also have some different private owned transportation options that you could look into as well. So when I looked at the gas just yesterday, I think it was coming in at about $1.85 a gallon. The average, I think, is around $2.50 a gallon, just on an average for a whole year. Right now our gas is lower, but that obviously fluctuates with supply and demand. So you can kind of just go off that ballpark $2 to $2.50 a gallon price. One other area I want to make sure to mention is the cost of utilities. Now I found that the average is somewhere around that $170 to $180 a month range. I know that we pay over $200 a month in the winter when we are paying for heat and that kind of thing in our house. And then under that in the summer when we're able to keep the windows open and not use the heat as much. If we were running the air conditioner during the summer, our bill would stay higher. But on average, it's somewhere around that $170 to $180 a month range. So when we talk about healthcare in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the cost of health-related expenses is a little bit above the national average. I think we're coming in at like 105% over the national average. If the national average is 100, we're at like maybe 105, so it's a little bit more expensive as far as healthcare-related expenses go. I don't know exactly what the cost of insurance is in this area, just because it varies so much depending on the person and your different health situations. So I'm going to leave that one up to you to figure out with whoever you use as an insurance provider or whoever your company might use as an insurance provider. That was kind of a lot of data. What do you think? 5-second drone break? Let's do it. And we're back. Let's get into what we were talking about. What were we talking about? Cost of living. One other thing that I wanted to do to help us understand more about the local Green Bay area as we think about the cost of living in Green Bay, Wisconsin, is to just look at this map that kind of breaks down the broader Green Bay metro area, talking about areas that would include like De Pere or Howard Suamico or just other areas like that around the Green Bay city limits itself. And we'll just kind of take a look at the map that kind of talks about the cost of living in each of those places compared to Green Bay, just for you to get a better idea of what the whole of the area looks like, and maybe help you kind of decide, well, what part of Green Bay and the surrounding area would be the best fit for me. You'll see that there's some areas that are costing more than the national average even, and some that are costing under. And we'll take a look at all of those, break them down, and kind of help you get a better idea of what the picture is. When we look at the map of the Green Bay area, what we see is that the areas surrounding Green Bay tend to have a higher cost of living than the city of Green Bay itself. So in this video, we're talking about the cost of living in Green Bay. So if you're thinking of living in some of the surrounding areas, your cost of living may be more expensive as you consider where you want to live in Green Bay, what area fits your preferences best. You can see in the bottom right here on the sliding scale, we have Green Bay in the white coming in somewhere around that like 90% average of the cost of living in the United States. And then we slide up the scale into the pink and into the red, and that reflects some of the areas surrounding Green Bay like Bellevue, Alloway, De Pere, Schwabenon, Hobart, and Suamico. As far as home costs go and average sale prices go right now, Suamico's coming in somewhere around that 280 to 300,000 range on average for this year, maybe even up into the 350 range. Hobart is in that 330 to 350 range right now. Schwabenon comes in around 210,000 on average for sale price. Alloway is about 190,000. De Pere comes in at about 230,000. And Bellevue comes in right now on average for the year about 275,000. Now these are average market prices over the year, and just like any other market, those prices fluctuate. Right now in a very competitive seller's market, we're seeing prices going above those averages, sometimes even significantly. I would say even this month, some of the average prices for this month were reflecting increases of over 20,000 over those average prices for the year. So just consider that as you're thinking about the prices of homes in the Green Bay and surrounding areas. But hopefully this visual helps you kind of understand the cost of living in the area better. And like I said, whatever part of the Green Bay area that fits your interests and preferences best could be a good fit. So take a look at all of them, consider the cost of living in those areas, and enjoy it. Now that we've talked about the cost of living in Green Bay and all that that entails, I wanted to compare it to a couple other places in the state to kind of help us get an idea of where it measures up. And we're going to look at two areas in particular, that's Milwaukee and Madison, just to kind of help us get a better idea of how it measures up with those other larger cities in the state. So we'll first talk about Milwaukee, and then we'll talk about Madison and get to know a little bit more about how they both compare. Real quick before we start looking at those, this is nothing to say that one is really better than the other. I've enjoyed being in all of these different cities before, and so this is just simply to help us understand how they kind of all compare economically. We love each of them and enjoy being a part of the state that has all of these awesome places in it. So I wanted to mention that before we get into this. When we talk about living in Milwaukee versus Green Bay, what we find is that the cost to buy a home in Milwaukee, this is the city of Milwaukee, is actually less than in Green Bay. I think it's somewhere around like $130,000 in Milwaukee. But when we think about the cost of living as a whole, it's actually more expensive than living in Green Bay. The main culprits of that are the other things like transportation, which brings the price up, and other things like that. So when we're talking about Milwaukee, you may find a deal in the housing side of it, but you're going to end up paying for other things that will raise the cost of living there above Green Bay. When we talk about living in Madison versus living in Green Bay, and we look purely at the housing aspect of it, purchasing a house in Green Bay versus Madison, what we find is that the cost to buy a home in Madison is significantly more. I think it's somewhere around almost like $100,000 more than in Green Bay to buy a home in Madison. Obviously, there's a lot of different amenities and things in different cities that will raise that cost, and competition as far as who's trying to buy homes in those different places. But that's a pretty significant increase as far as just the cost of housing and your monthly payment on your mortgage and things like that. The other expenses are also typically greater in Madison than they are in Green Bay. The one that is actually lower, I believe, is the cost of healthcare in Madison versus Green Bay. What does that tell us? Well, there might be healthier people living in Madison. So we can't really talk about the cost of living in Green Bay, Wisconsin without talking about the cost to attend a Green Bay Packer football game, can we? So the cost of living as it pertains to going to a Packer game, well, the ticket price is your main expense there. You're going to have food and other expenses that would go along with it, but the tickets are somewhere, if you're buying them on the secondary market, because all of the season tickets are already owned, the price is typically somewhere in that like 100 to 200 range, but you could pay less than that or even much, much more than that, depending on the amenities and things you're looking for. I've paid as little as $30 or $40 for a ticket before, and then as much as a couple $100. And that's mainly for me, that's sitting in the bowl part of Lambeau Field, the aluminum bench bleachers with all my buddies, tucked in there real tight. You could get a box seat or even some of the newly renovated seats in the south end zone that are just a folding seat with armrests and things like that. And it's going to cost a little bit different. So you'll have to look into what you're looking for as far as attending the game, what kind of comfort or experience you want, and then you can nail down the price and what it would cost to be able to go. Obviously, we're going to have lots of fun, so let me know when you're going and we'll go together. Dun, 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 dun. Go, back, go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video talking about the cost of living in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I know it was kind of a broad, sweeping video as far as costs are concerned, so if you have little details that you want to share about your experience of living in Green Bay, whether that's expenses or other things, feel free to comment below. Also, if you want to get connected more, you can do that by liking and subscribing to this channel. Feel free to share it with other people that you think might enjoy learning more about this, or maybe who are thinking about moving in this area. And then as always, make sure to comment below if you want to get connected in any other way. We're going to be putting out videos and content talking about living in Green Bay in all sorts of different ways. So I want to be able to include different things like that. And the best way to do that is to learn from you about what you actually want to hear more about. So comment below with those kinds of things, and we'll keep building content. Thanks.